Welcome to Shallow. One podcast, two time zones, diving deep into a new topic every week. From pop culture to beauty and wellness trends, careers and ambitions, these conversations flood our WhatsApp inboxes and social media feeds. Dialing in from Sydney, Australia and London, UK, we're asking the same question. Is it really that deep?
The shallow take is that internalised misogyny isn't that deep. A joke about not being like other girls, a casual dig at someone being too girly, judging a woman for being too emotional, or laughing about how girls are so dramatic without realising the stereotype it perpetrates. Behind this laughter lies a lifetime of subliminal messaging telling us that femininity is weakness, that other women are rivals, and that women should shrink themselves and their bodies to be as small as possible. We are judged, picked apart, hung out to dry for our clothes, our appearance, and even our hormonal cycles. But it's not just about how society sees women, it's about how we have learned to see ourselves.
In this episode, we're peeling back the layers of how internalised misogyny seeps into our everyday lives. From the way we think, to the way we talk, to the way we treat other women. Is it just another buzzword, or is it actually shaping how we move through the world? Let's find out if it's really that deep. Lucy Bell, how are you? Final episode of season 3. I'm buzzing. How have you been?
Honestly, I feel like this is such an achievement. Like, you are in Australia and I am in the UK, and we have completed an entire season together quite seamlessly, actually. Wait, we've done it.
I'd say it's been seamless.
I was thinking about how I am before we started this episode, and I was thinking, how actually am I? And I'm so deep into the Throne of Glass series, the book series by Sarah J. Maas.
She's been loving it.
And I'm on like book 6 or 7, and I've got there in the past like 2 or 3 weeks, and they're like 500, 600, 700 page books. And I am at the moment like tandem reading 2 of the books because 2 of the books happen at the same time. I'm doing a tandem read, which is quite psychotic if you think about it. It's a little bit
controversial on Book Talk, actually.
Yeah, it's either you really should be doing it or you really shouldn't be doing it. But I kind of like, someone told me not to do it, and I was like, oh, that makes me want to do it more. So,
I've been loving those books. They're so good.
They're brilliant. I know you're reading them at the moment as well. If anyone's into like fantasy books, they're great. They're really great. But how are you?
Love it.
How's it going in Ausland?
I'm good. I actually have a recommendation this week. Have you seen Better Man, the Robbie Williams biopic, however you pronounce it?
No, but I keep seeing, I think it's on like Amazon Prime now or something, isn't it? It's on streaming. It's really good. Yeah, I watched it on the flight back over. I honestly didn't want it to end. He's portrayed by a monkey in the show, in the film, and you genuinely forget he's a monkey like 5 minutes in, like you just see past it. It's honestly big recommendation. I absolutely loved it. Great, it's on my list.
Right, should we dive in?
Let's dive in.
Let's talk about internalised misogyny. Basically, when women absorb sexist ideas and turn them inward or onto other women, it's subtle, it's often unintentional, and it's baked into the way we grow up. The phrase, "I'm not like the other girls," it sounds harmless, right? But it's a way of distancing yourself from femininity to seek, ultimately, male approval whilst putting down other women in the process.
Yeah, I think when I was like kind of researching for this episode, the kind of, when I think of internalized misogyny anyway, I think of the "I'm not like other girls" trope, and that kind of like boys girl, she's a boys girl, she's not a girl's girl, like that kind of like idea. And it kind of reminded me of this TikToker, Katie Whitney. You've probably seen her. She's really funny. She kind of leans into more of the cringe talk, and she'll do the kind of like sucking up to guys and pretending that she's like the boys girl. It's really funny. I'm not going to do a little skit of it, but yeah, you should find her on TikTok because she's really funny. And I think it kind of just highlights those kind of like more lighthearted, vibe of internalized misogyny, which is, oh, look at her, like she doesn't want to hang out with the girls, like she's, she comes up to me and says, I'm a boys girl, or I just like hanging out with boys and doing boys things. And it's this kind of like idea of having to appeal to the other gender, right? And you know, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. We all know this. Take a shot.
Take a shot.
You know, there is. I could give criticism. I can give criticism, and especially, you know, can I? The "You Belong with Me" song, for example, like it is essentially about a normal girl, you know, trying to get the attention of a popular girl's boyfriend. You know, it's that kind of like, I'm more low-key, I don't, you know, wear hair extensions, I'm all natural. It's that, like, I appeal to the boys more because, you know, I'm not into girly things, I don't like putting makeup on. It's that kind of trope. And, you know, I love Taylor Swift, and I love that song, and I love that music video, and it'll always have a place in my heart. But it does have those, you know, those underlying messages.
100%. And I think also, especially it's so prevalent at that age as well, like high school, like you're growing up, you're kind of being sent these subliminal messages in like a really your mind is molding itself, you know, your frontal lobe hasn't developed. And I feel like it's really prominent at that time, and around that time where she also wrote the song as well. But I think let's go even further back to the beginning. Why are we conditioned this way? Like, where does this stem from, Luce?
Well, I mean, the obvious ones are kind of like, you know, when you're growing up and there's that whole like pink is for girls, blue is for boys, like the very, very obvious things that everyone's sitting there going, yeah, of course. You know, boys' toys, tractors, diggers versus girls' toys, Barbies, you know, homeware, you know, toys, you know, that kind of like kitchen, little kitchen set. You know, girls being told to be ladylike, to not do handstands and show your knickers because that's not ladylike. You know what I'm saying? Like that. The amount of times when I was a kid where it was like, pull your dress down. Oh, don't be like running around with boys. You know, that kind of like, it's just ingrained into us from a very, very early age. And like also being praised for being quiet, I think. It's like, look at the girls, look how quiet they are. And, you know, for example, in school, the teacher, boys being boisterous, running around, like, look how lovely, like, Lucy is being. I wasn't. But, like, you know, she's really quiet and she's really reserved and she's really shy. And that was kind of praised. Whereas, you know, the girls might have been sat there being quite insecure and not knowing how to speak out and not knowing how to express that more boisterous side to them because they're constantly told to be quieter and to be softer and to be more feminine.
Definitely. And I think also that praise of silence grows up into when actually a woman does express themselves, or they do get a bit angry, or maybe, God forbid, shout. They're crazy, they're hostile, you know. That all kind of grows up into that. And there's also, you know, there's other subtle messages like being told to smile, resting bitch face. Like, what's the male version of that? You know, there kind of isn't one. And, you know, going into almost when you start your period as well, often that can happen at a really young age, and it almost feels shameful.
Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of like being told to smile thing, you know, like when you're in the street, I mean, we've probably all come across it, either an old man or, you know, just someone will like look at you and say, come on, smile, love, you know, that whole subliminal messaging then bleeds forward into the future, where when you do see a woman who has a straight face or is not smiling, you're like, oh, she's got a resting bitch face.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was a bitch at first because she didn't smile. It's that subliminal messaging that feeds the internalized misogyny. Like, even though we're like, oh, that guy just told me to smile, like, tell him to fuck off. Like, that then bleeds into your life, and you do put that on other women, even if you don't realize it.
100%. And could you just run through the research you found as well? Because I honestly, you pulled this into the run sheet, and I honestly fell face first into this trap.
So there was a piece of research conducted by Michaela Wapman and Deborah Bell, and it was basically essentially a riddle, which I'll read out for you now because I think it's quite interesting. A boy is in a car crash. His dad dies. At the hospital, the surgeon says, I can't operate on him. He's my son. Most people don't realise the surgeon is the boy's mum, and that's how deep the bias runs. The researchers ran this riddle with two groups, 197 psychology students and 103 children ages 7 to 17. So they were kind of getting two sides of it. And in both groups, literally only a very, very small number of people maybe 15% of the children, 14% of, the adults, the students, came up with, the mums the answer. They couldn't understand, why they couldn't operate on him, because his dad was already dead. So, why would his surgeon be the dad? And they couldn't understand that was his mum.
Let's go into pop culture for a second. I think, teen magazines, TV shows, TikTok, Instagram, all of these messages are being fed to us. And now, obviously, especially with social media being not new anymore, like younger and younger girls are seeing these messages, not just from like rogue tatty magazines, but they're also getting it from social media, which is a 24/7 medium. And I just wanted to kind of go through a couple of examples, like, judging women in politics, for example. Like, I think, around the media, around what women wear and say, whilst men aren't absent from the critique, especially in politics, often female politicians are critiqued so much more harshly, and often by women as well, female journalists in the press, because we've been taught that leadership should look a certain way, and that is the male way. Even, Legally Blonde, for example, one of the best films ever, Elle Woods is consistently underestimated by women as much as she is by men. Early on, her appearances seem incompatible with intelligence or seriousness. Like, she can't like pink and be smart. She can't put on a nice outfit in the morning. That makes her dumb. And everyone around her sees her as stupid, essentially, until she kind of proves herself. And even Elle herself sees women like Vivian as threats until ultimately they become allies. And, the final cherry on top that I want to talk through is the Bachelor franchise. It's obviously, it's a TV show, it's produced, it needs to be spicy for the views, but it's framed around finding love. But the format obviously positions women to compete, sabotage, judge, and reinforce that other women are ultimately rivals and not allies.
And also, when women do kind of bring other women down, they're almost praised for it. It's like, oh, she gets it, she gets it. They're praised. They're lifted up by other women, other men. Like, oh yeah, she's not like the other girls who are into pink, who are into, all these other feminine things. Like, you can't be feminine and be smart, like the Legally Blonde reference. And yeah, it's always making yourself more masculine to fit in. It's always like, you have to be more masculine to be respected, to be like deemed as intelligent or deemed as worthy of those positions, of those career positions. And The Bachelor, reality TV in general, you see the kind of the women bashing in a way. Like, you see it on the screen, you see the arguments, when, for example, I was watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and like there was so much internalized misogyny within that show, and I was sat there looking at the husbands thinking, they're awful and they're sexist and they're misogynistic, but it was the women fighting between themselves about the situation rather than actually turning the eye onto the men who were behaving badly and behaving inappropriately. It was crazy. And I think on social media that kind of had a bit of a backlash, and they had to kind of reevaluate some stuff. Love that show, by the way, it's so addictive. But moving on to kind of more of the celebrity, couples in pop culture, because I think this is such an example of internalized misogyny. I'm just going to put it out there: Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I mean, I could do a whole entire podcast episode on this subject because it's so interesting. Probably will. But the whole kind of like, it was almost like the kind of witch trials of Amber Heard in a way, and
it was bad.
She didn't act like the perfect victim. So people turned on her very fast, and I almost feel like it was, the support for Depp was kind of it was rebranded as liberation from this Me Too movement. It was the backlash of the Me Too movement. It was like, that's had its moment and it's gone too far, and look at us, we're going to support Johnny Depp and show that we are for the men as well. And it's like, well, are we going to forget that, they're either as bad as each other? We all don't know what's actually happened. We're just seeing something on screen. I think it was awful that it was televised, that whole trial. Like I said, I could go into this a lot, but I saw a lot of women online hating on Amber Heard, and, you know, she's come off extremely badly. Like, she's had to change her name. I mean, I think she lives in Spain and she had to change her name, or, you know, her career is definitely in the bin. I mean, I'm pretty sure Johnny Depp's probably going to come back. And it's,
well,
it's hard.
I think he's still on Dior ads and stuff. Like, I think he had an article, or maybe it was Brad Pitt. I'm getting the two confused, but oh no, actually, I think it was Johnny Depp. He had a piece done in him in like GQ or something like that recently, and you know, I remember when all of that stuff was TikTok televised, that court case, and honestly, my heart sank, because, and now we know a lot of that sentiment wasn't organic, it was manufactured by his PR team, but that caught like wildfire, and it was such a crazy domino effect that all they had to do was light a little bit of a flame under that bonfire and she was on the top being burnt at the stake. And I was so disappointed. And look, I think people love to be like, neither of them are innocent, neither of them seem like that, you know, good people. And I'm like, okay, look, that might be true, but the sentiment in the way we're willing to forgive one of those parties but not the other. And also, just to add, he was found guilty in the court in the UK, and I do feel like this was a publicity thing. He knew what he could do with the help of the PR team, and he did it.
I think it's really hard for people as well to see somebody like Johnny Depp, who they've seen through their childhood, growing up with them, and like they're so
loved characters.
They love him so much. It's the same with Michael Jackson. Like, you know, people still continue to support him, and it's really hard for them to, you know, separate the kind of the artist from the person. And like, you can still like Johnny Depp films, but for that to bleed into kind of forgiving him and, you know, making Amber Heard like the pinnacle of this kind of circus act, in my mind, is kind of unforgivable in a way. And it kind of bleeds into the kind of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie thing. Like, Brad Pitt is well loved, he's well liked, he's never, you know, his own kids don't speak to him, like, you know, and Angelina is the one that has been dragged through the media, you know, with that kind of that breakup and that divorce, and you know, there's allegations of abuse.
About that though is that it doesn't seem to stick to her. And I don't know why that is, because she's very admired, she's very loved, she's not controversial, she's not loud. And I don't know if it's the fact that the kids are like, no, he's an asshole. That's why it hasn't stuck. But for some reason, I feel like whatever they've tried with her hasn't worked in the same way it worked with Blake Lively or Amber Heard. Well,
in a way, I think Angelina Jolie is a lot bigger in terms of celebrity wise. Like, she's up there, isn't she? You know, but you know, she still was called controlling and a homewrecker for years.
Interesting.
But, you know, I think one of the biggest examples of this kind of internalized misogyny is Monica Lewinsky. She had an affair with Bill Clinton when she was 22. She was the White House intern, so she was very low down the ranks. She got branded as a seductress, and he pretty much walked away with his reputation intact. I think there was some sort of impeachment. There was some sort of repercussions for him, but in terms of like the media like backlash, there was little to none, and it was based around basically what a slut Monica was. And I found a really kind of disturbing article from Time magazine called "The Shaming of Monica and Why We Owe Her an Apology." And it quoted that her mother feared that she would be literally humiliated to death, and that Monica often had suicidal thoughts for years after the scandal. And one of the quotes that really, really stood out to me was, "Blaming women will always be in fashion." And it's you know, it sells in magazines, it sells in articles, it sells in the media, it sells in social media. You know, anytime a woman is kind of, you know, in a scandal, you always look at the women. It's like, let's look at the Coldplay incident that happened, you know, a couple of weeks ago. You know, both parties were equally to blame, the CEO, the guy, and the woman. But the woman was, I feel like, kind of the pinnacle of the media's focus, especially when talking about appearance. And, you know, a lot of those comments were from women saying, oh, why would he, you know, leave his beautiful wife for this hag, you know, that kind of like trope. It was a lot of that. And although that scandal was hilarious, and it really was like but in terms of gender, it wasn't so funny.
100%. And to wrap up on that, take your second shot of the episode, because what better example in the modern day? Taylor Swift. Obviously mocked for dating too many men, writing breakup albums. Who's going to date you if you're going to write a song about them? The old narrative. And, you know, men write these albums too. Ed Sheeran, Bruno Mars, Shawn Mendes, Noah Khan.
From the dawn of time.
Yeah, yet they are not being harassed by it. This reputation is not following them around.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what artist hasn't written about a past love? Like, can you, like, this argument, I've never understood it. I've never understood, she only writes about her exes. Who doesn't write about their ex? Like, you know, let's take it back to Elvis Presley, like literally singing love songs and heartbreak songs about the people that it sells. Like, that's what people want to listen to, you know?
Connect with.
And what's wrong with that? Just because she's a woman and that she can't do the same, and because she's quite successful as well. I think it's the success part that people are intimidated by, and that it's very cool to hate on Taylor Swift. And I think it's Taylor Swift in my mind is kind of like an elastic band. You know, people really, really love her for a certain amount of time, and then she gets too much praise and too much, you know, following, and then it swings back and it snaps back, and it's like the whole, like, let's jump on the Taylor Swift hate train. She's getting too big for her boots. It's not cool to like Taylor Swift anymore. And, you know, I see it kind of happening now. I mean, we've had the big boom with Midnights and then the Eras tour, and, you know, it kind of brought about millions and millions more to her fan base. And it was kind of, in a way, for a very small fraction of time, it was kind of cool and great to like Taylor Swift, and everyone was kind of impressed by her. And like a year after her tour's finished, it's kind of like that, everyone's sick of it, no one wants to hear about Taylor Swift anymore. And it's the whole kind of like jumping on that kind of 1989 bandwagon of she's not likable enough anymore, she's too wealthy, she's too successful. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're trying to say. And actually, there was a really interesting article named Me, Taylor Swift, and Internalized Misogyny, a 14-year journey of learning to admit I enjoy Taylor's music. What was the point of cutting myself off from pop music other than to differentiate me from the popular girls on the other side of the lunchroom who were simply vibing to some upbeat bops they'd heard on the iTunes chart? Let's move on to how it kind of shapes our opinion of ourselves. Internalized misogyny, it's not just a mindset. It ultimately shapes how we move through the world, how we work, how we look, how we speak, and to see each other's. And spoiler, it's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, starting emails with, you know, I'm sorry to bother you, or when you're asking something completely reasonable, you're saying, I'm just wondering if I can ask you this, or feeling like you don't belong in the room, even though you're more than qualified and you've got your degree and you've got all this experience behind you. Feeling pressure to tweak, lift or shrink or fix yourself in terms of like facial enhancements. But being judged if you do get the work done, but being judged if you don't get the work done. Like it's always a two-way street as a woman. You know, so much of our value is being tied to how desirable we are to men. You know, it's either the kind of like you are natural and you're beautiful and men will like you for that, or you are not natural and you're tired and you're haggard and you're old looking and you should get work done. But when you do get the work done, they're like, oh, look at her, she's just trying to appeal to men. You know, it's also being called bitter and crazy or a liar when you speak up about something that you feel, you know, strongly about, but being complicit basically when you stay quiet and you don't say anything.
It's almost like a very, very twistedly clever in a way, because like you can't win. Like, as you say, like you either, you know, play nice, but you're too nice and then you're not going to progress in your career, for example. Or you get the work done, but you take it a little bit too far. Or, you know, you get emotional and it's like, don't get to it. But then you don't show emotion and you're a bitch. Like it's twisted and it's clever because it puts you in a state of play where you physically cannot win. And it goes back to what you were saying about kind of, you know, the Taylor Swift and other women as well. You know, we're seeing it with Molly May at the moment, light touch with Sabrina Carpenter with that album cover of she's funny, she's great, she can't put a foot wrong
until
she's too big for her boots now. We've decided that one day they've done something we don't like because we're in a certain mood and we can't have it anymore, and it's threatening. Going into kind of the state of play now, so kind of after years of waves of feminism fighting for progress, I want to dive into like, why does it feel like we're slowly sliding backwards? Where's the self-awareness? Why do we feel like we're in a time machine to the 1950s?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely start with the trad wife aesthetic, you know, that kind of almost like conservative feminism is a bit on the rise at the moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of like glamorizing that submissive, like stay at home, feminine, looking soft and vintage, baking bread with an apron on. You know, it's selling this lifestyle where women shrink themselves emotionally, intellectually, and physically for approval by men. And it's that kind of like, oh, I don't need to have a career. Look, I can bear children for you and I can make your food for you. It's this bizarre like throwback to the 1950s that I'm not really about. It's romanticizing a time basically when women had fewer rights. Like, as I said, we're seeing more women supporting these systems that actively limit them from defending like abortion bans, you know, and backing politicians 100%. Like Trump, you know, like the women are doing that in America, and this kind of trad wife aesthetic almost goes like hand in hand in a way with that, and it's quite concerning.
There's something about, you know, birth control as well. I saw a creator, I think it was Ellie, I forget her last name, but she's very big on TikTok, and she was talking about the pill and birth control, and I never thought about it in this way. And if you haven't listened to the episode we did with Beth and Walters on the pill, go back and listen to it. It totally changed my mind on birth control. I was expecting to get on for that episode and be like, this is shit, you know, all of this stuff
Screw
against
birth
it.
Control, yeah,
essentially forgetting actually how important it is. And also, yes, it's important that we push for more research into PCOS, fibroids, and all of that reproductive health stuff. But if we're loud about how awful birth control is, we're essentially giving people a golden ticket to take it away. And that was her point. And honestly, I'd never thought about it from that angle before. And, you know, leaning into that kind of like trad wife. And it also seems to snowball into that kind of like thin is back, the Ozempic culture of like, if we don't fuel ourselves, if we don't give ourselves energy, it's like that frail, quiet woman. And it's just, I'm just
smaller,
it.
You're quieter, you're prettier. Yeah. It's just aesthetics. It's how can we shrink them? And yeah, the Ozempic thing, I mean, we've done an episode in season 2 on Ozempic, and we did touch on the kind of like, it is almost a way of women shrinking themselves, and you physically shrink your muscles so you're not as strong. So you're making women less strong as well. It's this kind of clean girl aesthetic, the quiet luxury, soft girl being quiet. Like, you're literally like reducing the size of you in society. And it just feels like that kind of internalized misogyny is winning in a way. There's so much to talk about on this subject, but we do have to wrap it up. We can't, you know, sit here and talk for 5 hours, which we could very easily do. I think we're going to probably do another episode or 2 on this subject, because there's quite a few kind of, you know,
there's a lot to say,
streets to go down in a way. But I just kind of want to leave you with this, like, you know, you've got to be sexy, but not too much. You've got to ask for what you want, but don't overstep the mark. You've got to be successful, but still thin and still likable. And most of all, you've got to be confident, but please just be quiet, woman. But yeah, internalized misogyny. I mean, we've kind of answered the question. Is it really that deep? Is it really that deep?
It fucking is, isn't it? It absolutely is. And you know what? I'm going to give a really quick answer. It absolutely is that deep. It feels like we're sliding backwards. And actually, one thing I've found is that it actually is affecting me more the older I get. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't give a shit. Like, genuinely, I was quite bolshy, a lot more confident than I am now. I just did not care. And now I think the older I get, maybe the more messaging I've imbibed, or being in a corporate commercial workplace, it's awful, but you feel like you have to play the game if you want to get anywhere, and it's gross. How about you? Is it really that deep?
Yeah, I think the sliding backwards thing is the most important thing to take from this, in my opinion. Like, it feels like, yeah, like I was a lot more confident, and now it feels like we're kind of coming up against something, and whether that's because we're just getting older and we're being exposed to it more, or whether it's because it's just getting worse because there's more of it on the internet. You know, we have Donald Trump as the president of the United States. Like, there's a lot of concerning things happening for women's rights, for women's safety, and for feminism in general. It just feels like it's being put either on the back burner or being, you know, kind of really dragged through the ringer, like in terms of, you know, people not really being feminist anymore, or kind of abolishing that term in general. And yeah, it's concerning. So it definitely is that deep. But yeah, I think this is definitely something to dive deep into. And now it's time for...
What a pile of bollocks!
This is the time in the show where we just chat about something really insignificant that just pisses us off, makes us angry, and really riles us up. And today it's Phoebe's turn, so hit the floor.
Okay, it doesn't make me angry so much, but matcha, what the fuck are we all doing? Look, I know it has like roots in Asia. I know that people are very, you know, about that, and I get it. I'm not hating on that. I just think it tastes foul. And like, it's just disgusting. And I just feel like people are pretending to like it. Like, you can't actually like this drink.
It does taste like grass, I will say. I've never had a matcha and thought, this is tasty. And I was at Blank Street Coffee the other day, and I ordered like an oat flat white or whatever, and every single order before me was a matcha latte. I'm not joking. Like, they were pumping that shit out like it was going out of fashion.
Aren't they?
I just don't get it. I don't know. Maybe they're tasting something different. Maybe their taste buds are just like completely different to ours, because all I taste is grass.
The thing is, like, I feel like it's something I should love. Like, I have a very weird taste in food. Like, I like weird food, and this. I can't get on board with it. And people are like, you've got to have a syrup with it. And I'm like, if the point of this is that it's supposed to be healthier for you and tasty, etc., like, then I like lacing it with syrup is making it just like taste like sugar syrup, and that makes it so much worse for you. And you might as well, like, I'm just gonna have a coffee, all right?
If you want it to be green, just dye your oat milk green. Put some food dye in it.
I do think there's like a big aesthetic thing, like the way it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very Insta, it's very Pinterest, and look, like, it really works with our brand, so I'd love to love it.
We will be doing a reel on a pink and green matcha latte. So
it's inbound. But what a pile of like, it's just gross, isn't it?
I won't pretend to like it though. I'll buy it, but I won't pretend to like it. I'll drink it, but I won't pretend to like it.
Honest reaction. I did have one once that was like quite creamy with oat milk, and I had a sip, and I was like over friends, and I was like, ugh. It was okay, but yeah, I can't. It's not.
Yeah, I think I had a smoothie in with it once, and yeah, it just didn't take away from the fact I could taste the matcha. Like, I was like, it has all this fruit and vegetables in it. Ooh, nice. And then it might like cover the taste of the matcha. It did not. I didn't like it.
It did not. It did not.
Don't like it. Don't like it.
Thank you so much for listening to Shallow. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. It makes a huge difference in helping others to discover the podcast. We always want to hear from you, so feel free to slide into our DMs or follow us on Instagram @shallowpod, or send us an email at shallow@boxedoff.studio. Shallow is a Boxed Off production, written and hosted by Lucy Bell and Phoebe Whittle. We'll see you next time.